if you are suffering from any type of mental disability or any type of mental illness, maybe you are having issues with people accepting who you are as an individual in your sexual orientation or sexuality. Maybe you're being bullied as a kid and you feel like the weight of the world is too much on you and you've had the thoughts of harming yourself. Please don't. There is no way possible this world will ever be better without you. Whether you know it or not, you matter. I care about you. In any fight that you have, I am more than willing to go through that fight with you. You are not alone in this. You're not the only one who feels what you feel. This is not a silent story that only you have to tell. If you are feeling that way and you feel like you're going to harm yourself, please reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. Again, that's 1-800-273-8255. And if for some reason you just don't feel comfortable enough to do that, feel free to reach out to me. A simple message in the subject that says we need to talk, and I will be 100% there for you every step of the way. Okay? Now, with that being said, let's talk football. What up, though, Pride Nation, and welcome back to another Field Review podcast show. And if you're paying attention to the thumbnail, you know what we're about to do, because the last time you probably saw him, if you have not been on his channel, you probably didn't see that he's had a few changes. But you know, I gotta dig both ways. Just, you know, I like to way both ways. I am talking about Pride of Detroit's Jeremy Reisman. What is going on with you today, sir?
Oh, not too much, Luke. How are you doing?
It's been a day. Work has made sure they got every penny out of me. So I'm entitled to a vacation real soon, and they should be expecting it. Trust me. Listen, I am too excited to talk to you because you have been in the room, you digging into the room, and you have been in all things Detroit Lions, and it's 100% got me excited. So, you know, obviously, when opportunity comes to talk to somebody who's that close, I can't pass it up, and it's a joy for me. So I'm excited to have you.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I get to be in the room and all that sort of stuff, but I'm just a fan like all you guys as well. So I like to think we kind of have a similar perspective.
See, and that's the way I treat them. People are like, oh man, nope, I'm just a fan. I happen to have an unhealthy addiction to something, but I'm a fan.
Yeah.
One day I might get all of you guys on from Pride of Detroit. Get Ryan and Chris and all of you on. I laugh half the time, especially when Chris says something that's left field. The face that you make when he says something crazy is like, oh, so we're doing this. Okay.
Oh, yeah. That happens at least 3 times an episode.
So obviously what I generally do is do a roll call. I want to thank everybody who's coming, but I'm on a very limited time stretch, so I want to make sure that I get through it. So trust and believe that I see you in the building. And if you are in the building, please make sure you hit that like, subscribe button. Also, if you are not familiar with the Pride of Detroit, which I don't know how the hell you're not, you say you're a Lions fan, it is linked in the description. So right at the gate, we're gonna get into it because we got a lot to cover. And I'm gonna pick on him a little bit, just a little bit, because he is in the room, and yes, he's a fan. But I gotta ask this question because why else not, right? What is this love affair that the media? I know the Lions fan base got this problem, but the media has this love affair with wide receivers. Now, I have been paying attention to the media real closely. Every time a receiver is cut, released, or something, there's an article on why they're a great fit for Detroit. Now, that's just not possible, but why is the Lions media so in love with the wide receivers right now?
Well, I mean, the easy answer is that the current ones on the roster just haven't really proven anything yet. You know, they go out and they get Amon-Ra St. Brown in the draft, and you think, you know, maybe this guy can be a starting slot. Maybe he can be, you know, a little bit on the outside as well. But other than that, you got a bunch of guys that, you know, that kind of whole chip on your shoulder mentality, and a guy like Tyrell Williams, who hasn't proven he can be a number 1 yet, but he's fared okay as a number 2 and a number 3. Brashad Perriman obviously has a lot to prove, not living up to that first round pick, stature that he got out of college. And then you have kind of a bunch of other guys that just kind of round out the roster that haven't really ever held the load of a full-time receiver. And so there's a lot of questions, and in an ideal world, it all works out, and Tyrell Williams becomes that number one, and Brashad Perriman turns things around. But there are a lot of questions now. I think the Lions are fine with where they're at in terms of what they have this year. I think they're planning more long term at wide receiver, and adding a guy like, I don't know, N'Keal Harry is I'm sure one of the guys you're referring to doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, and since there might be some attitude issues if he's already asking for a trade 2 years into his career because he's not getting the ball enough. That's not really the kind of attitude I think that the Lions are going to want inside the building. And then, adding, veteran free agents just doesn't seem like a smart move at this point. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see them go wide receiver high in next year's draft, but I think they're fine with where they're at right now because there's only so much you can do in one off season, and they did what they thought was necessary.
Now, let me just tell you, I feel like not necessarily you, but you are a part of the media. But I feel like there's a fanning of the flames. Like this is how I look at it. Like you have a dog, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So your dog has a favorite food or treat or something, right? And if you were to actually show your dog that favorite food or treat, but then you don't really give it to him, you are essentially teasing and enticing your dog's addiction. Well, that's how I view the Lions fan base to receivers. They love receivers. Like if you ask them, who do you keep, like Aaron Rodgers or Calvin Johnson, they would trade Aaron Rodgers in a heartbeat. Like, no, it's Calvin. We're keeping him. Like, they love receivers. And I feel like the Flames is being flamed because I have been trying to tell the Lion faithful that this receiving core reminds me a lot of the 1991 receiving core. A lot of pieces that really shouldn't be about much, but somehow worked. And ironically, another former first-round pick who had been kicked off of 2 teams before arriving to Detroit was who? Brashad Perriman's dad.
Right.
Brad Perriman. So, and we got a pretty good production out of him, which is ironic. I'm just putting it out there. Stay with me. Then you think about the draft. Obviously, we took Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's going to be the slot. We also, I think that year we drafted, was it Willie Green or Herman Moore, or was it both? I can't remember. My brain's a little shaky. You know what? I want to say it was Willie Green because I think Herman Moore was also a rookie too, but he couldn't play according to Herman Moore. Shout out to them from Breaking Bread with Herman and Lomas.
Great show.
Where they are hilarious. And the insight you get from them is filthy, disgustingly beautiful.
Absolutely.
But when he said that he didn't play because he had to wait on contact lenses, it made sense. So now stay with me. We bring in Amon-Ra St. Brown, similar to what we did with Willie Green, and then we basically had like a similar setup. Obviously, we had Barry, but we got a pretty good running back group. But this receiver love is strange to me. It's exhausting.
I think there's a couple things in play there. Like it's fun comparing them to the 91 team, and I do see some parallels there for sure. But we also have to admit that the game has changed a lot in 30 years, right? Like it's not exactly the same kind of league. They certainly throw the ball around more. But I think to your point, I think the reason why Lions fans are obsessive maybe over this and the media obsessive over this wide receiver thing is Lions have kind of been spoiled, right, at wide receiver over the past decade, going back from Calvin Johnson to Golden Tate to Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones. Like all those guys are top tier guys. Like maybe not bona fide number ones, but really, really close. And we all saw the contract that Kenny Galladay got, and that shows to speak how he's well respected outside of Detroit. So I think now that the Lions are lacking that pure number one that they've essentially had for the past almost 20 years at this point, people are kind of freaking out, and I get it.
Yeah, I look. Listen, obviously they're like, look, the media love to keep it up, but it's to me, it's just I look at it and I'm like, I went through and started doing a little research because that's kind of my thing. Don't be no chump. Please, do your research, right? I did some research and I was like, yo, this is crazy. Then I stumbled upon another guy who did the same research I did and made a video about it. And I'm looking at all the teams who had like these top tier, amazing wide receivers, no championships. I think it was like one in the last like 20 years or something like that. Yeah. I mean, hell, Randy Moss with that team, how did he not get that? How? It's so you start to see it, and I just say, listen, I feel like we are overblowing the receiver position. I'm like, because that's not even the worst position that we have on the team.
Oh yeah, I agree there completely. And yeah, I think you bring up a good point. Wide receiver isn't really the core of a team. Obviously the passing game is more important. Obviously I think wide receiver is still a highly valued position. You know, we saw the Rams traded a first rounder for Brandon Cooks, and that almost worked out. It didn't though, but but you're right. Like, quarterback is obviously more important. And I think that might also lead into some of the anxiety. I think a lot of people think Jared Goff needs help to be a good quarterback. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not true. We'll obviously see, in the next year or two. But I think quarterback change combined with all the wide receiver overturn has gotten a lot of people a lot of anxiety, I think. And I like I said, I get it, but I'm also with you. Like, there are more important positions out there, and if you have just a deep group of guys who can ball, like that can work as long as everything else is humming along, as long as your running game's humming along, and as long as your offensive line is humming along, and obviously the Lions have two good receiving threats in non-wide receiver positions in TJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift. So if all that works together, then yeah, it can work. The Lions offense can work. The other issue though is that the Lions haven't had a running game in 25 years. And so, everything looks on paper like it might work finally, but I feel like we've said that at least 5 times over the past 20 years and it hasn't worked out.
But I feel like this is a totally different situation. And I'm going to tell you this one thing because I have a tendency to go back and constantly look over, like, what am I missing?
Yeah.
And the first thing I noticed was this the first time we had a front office. Like, if you were to look at it, that John Dorsey being there changes everything.
Yeah.
Every time Brad Holmes was getting ready to trade up, you saw him over there just smooth, calm, and collected. Like, nope, just sit tight. It'll come to us. Let it fall. Yeah. Embrace the ability to just let things come to you. And I think if John Dorsey went there, we trade up and still take Sewell. We trade up and still take Anzarike, and now we don't really have a lot of draft capital to get the other guys. So again, just putting it out there. Shout out to Manny DC5 who says 2 GOATs of Detroit Lions media. Yes, sir. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Manny.
First Black Man on that says Cephas and Bowden are unsung heroes. Okay. What's going on, guys? Watching from the job. Appreciate it. Don't lose the job watching now. Replay game is real. But let me switch gears a little bit because I got a few questions I got to ask. And like I said, you were in the room. I kind of went on a little bit of a rant yesterday. No, it wasn't even a little bit of rant. I was in full-fledged rare mode. I am disgusted at this idea that Dan Campbell's lack of experience is they're going to be the death of the Lions. And right. We thought Patricia had experience and he was a coordinator. So was that the success of the Lions? Because it looked like it was a death too. So my question to you is this Dan Campbell lack of experience talk being overblown?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But the guy was an assistant head coach for 5 years. He was an interim head coach for a year. When you're talking about new hires, you're mostly getting guys who are only coordinators or positional coaches and things like that. Dan Campbell has head coaching experience and assistant head coaching experience. He learned besides one of the best coaches in the modern era for 5 years in New Orleans. Like, what else do you need? I don't understand what else you're looking for. Like, you can question his X's and O's. You can question whether, he's not serious enough for the job, I guess, if that's important to you. But his experience, he has it. He has a resume that's, the whole reason he was the assistant head coach in New Orleans was because they knew he had head coach written all over him. And so they were prepping him for 5 years. So I don't understand that at all. I think people just kind of look at him and see that kind of meathead mentality guy and says like, oh, this guy can't be heading a team. He doesn't have, the play calling experience. Well, he's not going to be doing any of that. He's surrounded himself with guys that he trusts to develop an offensive scheme, to develop a defensive scheme, to probably call plays on both sides of the ball. The only thing he's going to be doing on game day is motivating everyone from the sidelines, making sure everyone's communicating and, making those game day decisions in terms of, going for it and things like that. And he's had experience doing that. He talks about it still. He talks about how when he was with the Miami Dolphins and that was a new experience for him, there are still things that piss him off about what he did. A fourth down decision, 10 years ago still eats at him. So he's learned. He knows, and right. He knows what mistakes he's not going to make this time around.
And you know, it's funny because I had to, listen, when I tell you I went on a rant, I went on a rant. I dug deep. I found this interview that they did with the Eagles general manager, Tenen, how you pronounce this dude's name? Tannenbaum?
Yeah.
It was Banner. That's his name, Banner. So it says when Banner and the Eagles hired Reed in 1999, the move was controversial because Reed had never been a coordinator. The Eagles felt it was more important for Reed to be smart, connected with the players, paid attention to detail, and had a vision for how he was going to hire a staff to run a program. Why does it work for them, but for some reason our fan base and other outlets feel like, nope, he's a meathead? Am I the only one that remember when Mike Dicker put on the dread hats with the cigar for Ricky Williams?
Right.
Was he called a meathead? Nope.
Nope.
Look at some of the other coaches who have wore like racing coats in promotion of their like thing. He puts on a racing helmet and all of a sudden he's a meathead. Like, this is just ridiculous. And then I went to another quote, right? I found another interview because I can't help myself. and I looked up different writers and stuff, but this one right here was the exact quote coming from the owner of the Ravens. He says, "Did we take a chance by hiring John?" It says, "My belief is that you have to be willing to do things that the masses don't. Or you'll never separate yourself from the masses." Now, these are things to me that I just was like, why are we missing this? Because to me, this idea of experience has just been, oh, he was an assistant coach, overlook it. Oh, well. So I decided to break it down in terms of the Lions coaches. And I found that one coach had no experience and failed in Detroit, and that was Rod Marinelli. However, his front office was ran by Matt Millen. And that was the only common denominator to why it failed. But John Harbaugh, he had a very good front office and a good coaching staff and had success because of it. They go down the list with Andy Reid. Again, good front office, good coaching staff, and had success because of it. Hell, Brian Flores, right? Yeah. He's having somewhat success of turning that thing around. And that's a guy who came out of New England. I mean, what in the world? And so I just feel like it's 100% overblown in such a way that makes it hard for me to take a lot of it serious. And it's not just Colin Cowherd or Joy. What's her name? Joy Taylor. It's not just them. It's just the like overall blanket. Which quick sidebar, people, if y'all have not watched their latest video of them talking about the Stafford's new ranking and Jared Goff's new ranking, you're missing out because it's liquid gold, right? Like all of a sudden Stafford leaves Detroit and he's the sixth best.
It's all silly.
It goes hand in hand to show you that it's like some weird agenda out there to make us like look bad. And a lot of fans here and other fellow YouTubers feel that, he don't have experience and he was not the right hire. Do you feel that way? Like he wasn't the right hire? Or is it more of a wait and see approach for you?
Definitely more of a wait and see. I was definitely a little bit enamored with some of the X's and O's coach. Like I was big into Brandon Staley at the time. I think, the Rams former defensive coordinator. He was my guy at the time, but I'm not going to, there's not going to be one right answer. And I think the thing you said that really resonates with me is, doing something different, doing something that isn't the same, because that's what the Lions were victims of doing the past 20, 30 years is they're like, oh, the New England's doing it right. Let's just do what they're doing here. Didn't work. Let's just grab, Jim Caldwell, he got the Colts going. He fixed Peyton Manning and got a team around him and won a Super Bowl. Didn't work. Now the Lions are doing something that I can't ever remember seeing anywhere. And Michael Brocker talked about it today too with Jim Rome. He said, I've never been on a team with 7, 8, 9, 10 former players on the coaching staff who know how to relate to me, who know how to talk to me, who knows what it takes to play not only a year or two in this league, but 7, 8, 9, 10 years in this league. The Lions are doing something I've never seen anyone do. And Dan Campbell's took the one really that deserves most of credit for it because he's the one that built the staff. And he's that alone is the reason why I'm in Dan Campbell's corner already. That doesn't mean I think he's going to win a Super Bowl here. Doesn't mean, that I fully expect this, the team to go 11-5 six, right off the bat or anything like that. But the fact that he was able to build the coaching staff that he did, filled with a bunch of coaches that are not only former players, but guys that were heavily recruited across the league. Anthony Lynn was ready to take a year off after talking to a couple of other teams, and Dan Campbell comes calling. He's like, "Oh, I'm not sitting out. I want to coach. This is something special in Detroit going on." So I'm in on Dan Campbell. I think this strategy that he's already applied, at least to the staff, and what Sheila Ford-Hamp and Chris Spielman have done to that front office, like you said, they actually have a bunch of guys with experience who can work together. It all makes sense to me. It all makes a lot of sense to me. And yeah, there are some things that concern me about Dan Campbell. I do think his game day management is something that I'm going to keep an eye on, because I think he's a little bit old school in that mentality, and I don't think he's going to be as aggressive as I want him to be. But in terms of the organizational structure of this team and just the people that are leading it right now, I'm starting to believe.
It's so funny because you led us into our next question, but before I hit into it, I got to also add on to what you said by just pointing this part of it out too. Even like me, I'm thinking the same thing you thinking, the game management part of it, but then I realized something, and this was brought up to me by a subscriber that said that if you look at this team and how it's structured, there's a safety blanket behind every part of it. And I was like, what? And he was like, think about it. Anthony Lynn was a former head coach who was being brought in to be the offensive coordinator. Sure. And that's going to be something that he can lean on and get help from. You got Aaron Glenn, who's a new defensive coordinator, but he brings in Don Capers to help out. You Todd Walsh. I forgot about Todd Walsh. That's another one. And then you go through and you look at Brad Holmes, new general manager, but what do? John Dorsey and a host of other people. And then you talk about the like you said, being in his corner. That's why I'm in his corner, because you know what? When you talk about things being different, the thing that jumps out to me, the biggest thing that jumps out to me is it feels like we're finally doing things the Lions way.
Right.
Not New England, not the Falcons, not the Colts, the Lions way. And it feels different and uncomfortable to most fans because it is different. Yeah. It's not the same old move. They didn't go out and get the big name coach, Steve Mariucci, who apparently told, Joey Harrington don't audible, even though Joey Harrington told him, I'm going to get blitzed and destroyed from that side. And he told him, we'll find a way to make it work. He's like, so you don't want me to change it? Nope. Call the play. That's how Bill Walsh did, and that's how you're going to do it. Yeah. Well, okay. They changed it. But since we on the topic, we got to talk about it. How impressive is this coaching staff that Dan Campbell assembled? Like, from your viewpoint and from the fact of what you said, because you get to talk to other people in the media, you get to talk to all kinds of fans. What are you hearing in terms of how impressed they are with this coaching staff?
Well, to me, it's all about what the players think, right? Like, who cares what we think as a coaching staff? Who cares what, the Lions ownership thinks of the coaching staff? We know that they like these guys because they have to like these guys. But the players, some of these guys, talking to them now instead of last year or even a couple of years before, it's like night and day. You look at a guy like Tracy Walker, who's always kind of been a guy that isn't afraid to talk to the media. That guy just seems so down in the dumps last year and the year before. And like that's going to affect your play. And it did. We saw Tracy Walker slowly digress over the past 3 years, despite the fact that he came in looking very, very promising. And it looked like basically Matt Patricia ate at him and just chipped away at his knee. I said kneecaps, but
I knew he was coming with it. That's why I
didn't mean to say kneecaps in that sense, but yeah, like he's not the only one. You can look at it, even a guy like Jeff Okuda, who, like, before they even take the field, he's saying how much this coaching staff has already changed the way he views the game. That's all I need to hear. That's all I need to hear about how bad. It's almost more of an indictment of the previous regime than it is praising the current regime. But the fact that, the players seem really truly bought in. And yes, you're going to hear that from players every single year when a new coaching staff comes in. But you get to a point where you see enough of these press conferences, you see enough of these individuals where you can know when they're feeding you BS and when they're actually being legitimate. And to me, TJ Hawkinson's another example of guys that just look like completely different people now that the previous regime is gone. And it does seem legit to me. So you combine that with the fact that a guy like Deuce Staley was someone that had a lot of suitors. Anthony Lynn did a couple interviews this offseason. These are hot commodities. These are guys that had the Lions really had no business recruiting, considering where they're at as a franchise, but they did. And so that tells me that not only are the Lions doing a great job at recruiting, but the guys that they're recruiting see something happening in Detroit and believe in the division, in the vision that's happening here in Detroit. So yeah, I think they got a really good crew of guys. And I know there are already people worried about them losing him. Like, well, now Deuce Staley is going to leave for a head coaching job soon. And Anthony Lynn and Aaron Glenn, they're all future head coaches. So we should be worried about that. Well, I mean, the positive side of that is if coaches see that the Lions are churning out head coaches, they're going to want to jump to Detroit to become the next head coach, right? Like that's a 2023 problem anyway. So we shouldn't really be talking about it, but to answer your original question, I think the Lions did a heck of a job supporting Dan Campbell. And like you said, kind of having that backup situation at every position. That's something that I hadn't really even realized, but you're absolutely right about it.
Every single spot. And I didn't realize until a subscriber told me, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're right. Like he broke it down in such a way that I was like, I never thought about it. And it's funny because you talk about how people feel different and sound different and look different. This is when I knew it got bad. I knew it got bad when it came time for them to get a free agent named Richard Sherman, and he curved us harder than a bad date after you spent all your money. Like he curved us hard. And then I was like, why would he be feeling that way? And I told the people, I said, he's talking to players on his team and they're telling him what it's like to be here. And so I started noticing this and I said, let's fast forward to now Dan Campbell. And you hear George Kittle sitting up there talking about, praises and like, man, I like what they hear. And you hear other players talking about, hey, I like what they talking about over there and what they doing. And I'm hearing good news. And then you start to see this change where people are having a different perspective on the team as a whole. Like you said, we wasn't supposed to get Anthony Lynn. Anthony Lynn could have been up for a head coaching job or John Dorsey, or we're not supposed to get these kind of people. Yeah. I even made this comment. I said, when's the last time we had a coach pilfer from us? Right?
Yeah.
Like forever. So you look at it and it's a constant breakdown of it. Now, Patrick has a question. However, we'll do questions at the end because I want to go through the questions that we have. And so any questions you have, save them for the end. And then we'll go over it because we got a limited amount of time. But I did take a screenshot of your question, so I'll make sure I get that question asked later. All right. Now, the other thing that impressed me about this coaching staff, and it was like you said, what the player said. Forget what we talking about. What the player said. I told people that the moment the stories came out about the things that Patricia was doing, a lot of fans said they didn't buy into it, and I said he was yelling at a media guy for no reason. Right, like that. Yeah. That was my logic for saying what they're telling me. It's got to be true. I believe every story. Him coming in late, but trying to tell everybody else to be on time. I believe every bit of it. Yeah. And I started to realize that the coach staff was impressive when you have every person coming in here smiling and talking about it, but there's this level of competition in OTAs. You in shorts. You got coaches jaw jagging at each other because of 7-on-7. Like, what is this? This is different. Another thing I noticed, we didn't have a joint practice. Did you notice that?
Yeah. I'm curious. I don't know if that was a time thing, whether, considering the craziness of all the off seasons recently, if they just couldn't get it together. I know there are a couple other teams that are doing them, but yeah, that is kind of interesting that the Lions didn't do one.
Yeah, I just loved it because I feel like with the way that a lot of the media is portraying them, like I don't know how we keep getting pegged as having the first overall pick. How? like you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna throw this wild card question in there. I'm gonna throw it in there.
Hit me.
Okay, make sure I don't mess this up now, y'all. What do you think was the single most reason that the Lions sucked last year? Just the number one reason. If you had to just peg it on one thing only, what would you give it to? Like you need the whole 100%. I need you to give me the whole 100% to this one thing. What would you say was the reason that they were not good last year or the last 3 years, to be honest?
I think I go back to what Dan Campbell said early on when he was here in Detroit. The players on defense didn't know what they were doing. Period. Like they were running out there and just not doing what they were supposed to be doing, or not doing what they're good at. So whether you want to blame Matt Patricia's scheme or, his stubbornness in trying to fit square pegs in round holes, that sort of thing, the defense just was not a cohesive unit at any point, really over the past 3 years, but especially last year. And to me, like, when your defense is just like completely helpless, there's nothing your offense can do. Nothing. This is I hate to bring it back to 2008, but that's exactly what the story of the 2008 season. Like, that defense was just absolutely atrocious, and 2020 was essentially just as bad defensively.
They was worse.
Yeah, and so I think the difference between 0-16 and whatever they were last year, 4-11-5 or whatever,
I know,
whatever
right?
it was, it's like, it's probably math, like that math. That's the Matthew Stafford difference. Period. Like that's all that was, and it's fascinating to just see how bad a defense can be under a defensive-minded head coach.
Yeah, see, I looked at that, and the reason I asked you that question is because for me, the single 100% out. Matter of fact, if I can ante it up and put more on it, I'll put 1,000,000% of it was on that head coach. His inability to bridge relationships and to get out of his own way. When you have players saying that, hey, I would come off the field and try to tell him something, he would tell me to shut up. He got this, and I'm like, I realized another trend that he had was if you became a captain, you was getting traded. He was looking at you, Diggs and Kennard. So, but another thing, to go back to what you was talking about in terms of the coaching and stuff like that, I looked at that and I said, if that is changed now, and I do believe that it is changed, how in the hell are we constantly getting picked to be the first overall pick? Like, Urban Meyer has cheated at every college he's been at. Say I'm lying. Come on, Jeremy. Say I'm lying. He's cheated. And then as soon as he got caught, he was sick. Like, of the dire side, right? Like, you can't do that in the NFL. Good luck with that. You can't offer. Who you gonna offer a job, right? You got to be in position to draft the guy first, And then it's like they got Trevor Lawrence, so they're just better. And then you go down the line. I'm like, David Colley. Is Watson playing? Is he playing? And is Kylie really gonna make a difference? Like, come on. And we somehow, and then all of a sudden, like Robert Saleh, like, I understand he's a native. I get it. Everybody's like, he's a native. I get it. But he wasn't putting together this coaching staff. So
yeah. No, I'm with you in Houston, especially. I think Houston, man, if I was a Texans fan, I don't know how I would have any faith in that franchise going forward right now. Like, normally when you change head coaches, like, that's the time for optimism. That's why everyone is so excited in Detroit. None of that is happening in Houston. I would almost lock them for the number one pick.
Right.
But there are still a lot of questions with Detroit. Like, we're putting a lot of faith in this coaching staff turning things around in year one, turning around Jeff Okudah in year one, turning around Amani Oruwariye and everyone in that secondary in year one. And listen, if there's a coaching staff that can do it, it might be this one. But I'm not. It would have to be that. It would have to be Jared Goff turns things around. This offensive line clicks right away. The running attack somehow finally, after 20 years, figures it all out. There's just too many ifs for me to even believe. Like, even if all that sort of stuff happens, we're still probably looking at a near 500 team that can maybe challenge for an NFC North division, depending on what happens with Aaron Rodgers. So I mean, and that's like the absolute ceiling. Now, the opposite of that is, like, I don't know, TJ Hockenson gets injured, and then what do you do there? Like, who's your main go-to guy after that?
I'm sorry, Jeremy. Hold on, I gotta pray, because you put that. Hold on. We knocking on wood, metal, glass.
Please
we don't want any of this to happen. And universe, he never said it. He never said it.
But my point is, like, it does feel like if we're building a house of optimism with Detroit in 2021, it feels like it's built on cards, because you take one piece out, whether, whatever happens, one of these key players that we're penciling in for 1,000-yard seasons or 10 sacks or whatever. If you take one of those guys out, I'm not sure there's someone that can step up and fill that role. And so
I am.
Yeah.
I am, and
okay.
I'll explain it to you. Even if the TJ thing that you just put into the universe that we won't speak on again, but let's just say that did happen. I don't expect for the Lions to to rely heavily like they did on Matthew Stafford on Jared Goff. I expect for Jared Goff to be Troy Aikman. And Troy Aikman to me was the world's greatest game manager outside of Tom Brady. Tom Brady might be the best game manager ever. I will challenge anyone to that belief. If you don't believe me, just go and look at it. They were very good at running the ball and playing defense. And then in the playoff, people would try to gear up to stop the run, and he would dot them up down the field. And I expect that to happen with Goff. But I also look at this team and I said they were 7-9 and went 11-5 with Jim Caldwell. The Packers were 6-9-1, I believe, and went 13-3 with Matt LaFleur. This happens way too often where teams are turning it around in 1 year, but there's a common theme with this. And it's generally a strong coaching staff with a head coach who has a connection or a visionary with the players, and then you have the front office part that goes into it. So am I saying that this team is going to go in there and take it over and be like 13? No, I'm not saying that. I'm certainly not saying what Drake Bell said, where he said they're going to go 3-14. I'm not saying that. No, I'm not. But I'm telling you that I have them between 8 and 10 wins. That's where I have them at. And again, that's still around that 500 area, but I think they can do better. I just find it to be ironic. And since we were talking about those coaches again, what do you think our coaches rank in terms of of all the teams who got a new coach? Where's our head coach ranked? Obviously, you have the Eagles who have a new coach.
Sirianni.
Yeah, who believes in him? I'm not even trying to be funny. Who believes in Sirianni? Like I would love for somebody to tell. I don't even think the Eagles fan base believe in him. Like
that was kind of a out of left field hire. They were looking for, well, I guess they weren't looking for, they were kind of late to the game because they didn't know what they were doing with their current head coach, and they decided a little too late, and they got late in the game. But it's tough. Like I said, I was a big Brandon Staley fan. I understood the Robert Saleh thing as well, and I was for that. And I don't know. It's tough because, like I said, Dan Campbell has done a really, really good job winning me over since the Lions hired. I would say at the time, I was probably, I don't know, maybe third or fourth on my list of guys that ended up getting hired. Like we said,
out of seven total.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
So right in the middle.
Yeah,
I would say he's probably climbed up to maybe third or second. Like Brandon Staley is still probably my dude. Maybe Arthur Smith as well. But
I don't believe him.
It's a different approach, right? It's getting that X's and O's kind of brilliant, quote unquote brilliant coordinators. And yes, I understand brilliant coordinators don't always work out. We may have just tried that and it didn't work. But I don't know. There's something different, at least that seems like. I think the Lions' major mistake was digging into the Patriots tree. It was getting that hard-nosed authoritarian type. It wasn't the fact that they got a coordinator that was the issue. It was definitely the culture problem. And so I don't know what I don't really know what Arthur Smith is like as a person. I don't really know what Brandon Staley is like a person, if he can relate to people, if he, is a good leadership type. But if they were, I think I probably still would have preferred them. But in terms of, I don't think there's a better leader of men than Dan Campbell amongst this group. The question is just whether he can get everything else in order. And like we've said already, he's certainly done a good job building a support system that can help with all that extra stuff.
Now, Top Tier says, your voice sounds familiar. What podcast are you on? Is it Apple Podcasts? He's trying to remember.
We're available on a bunch of all the podcast platforms, but it's called the Pride of Detroit Podcast, the PODcast as we cleverly call it, although that makes it very hard to search for. So just search Pride of Detroit on whatever podcast platform you use, whether we are an Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, all that sort of stuff. We're on YouTube as well, so you can find us all there.
All right, 100%. Now, here's where I rank them at. I got them at number one. And this is not me being lying biased. It's the coaching staff.
Yeah,
I look at Arthur Smith. They basically, from what I've read, he's calling his own plays. Okay,
that can be an issue. It works for some, but doesn't work for everybody.
I'm just saying. I looked at Urban Meyer, and I was like, okay, he got Darrell Bevel as offensive coordinator. All right.
Yeah.
I forgot. I think Sirianni? Was it Sirianni who hired Joe Lombardi as the offensive coordinator? I'm drawing a blank on it. But their coaching staffs were not strong. And I just remember thinking, that I'm not impressed with what I'm seeing in terms of their coaching staff. So I had them as a number one for a reason. And I think it's fair. Now, this question came from a subscriber. I have loved this. I hope you write something about this, and I hope you jump on this because this needs to be discussed on a big stage. Who will and should get the bulk of recognition when the Lions receivers perform? Because I believe they will perform. I think everything's going to be done through levels. I think, like I said, he's going to be managing the game. It's going to be literally from tight end to slot receivers to the running back. And if you dare come up, which I hope you do, it's over the top, over your head with speed. But I'm just saying, if this happens and they do perform well and become the receiving core that many people don't think they are going to be, who do you think will and should get the bulk of the recognition for it?
Well, I know you're probably looking for a coach as the answer, but you know what a good quarterback does is make bad or mediocre receivers look a lot better. And so I think right out of the box, Jared Goff would get that credit.
Wow.
Because that's something, and I know that sounds crazy considering what people are saying about Jared Goff right now. But if the Lions offense is clicking and the wide receivers are gaining a lot of yards and the passing attack is a top 10 passing attack in this league, Jared Goff is going to get that credit because, like I said, good quarterbacks. I mean, we saw Aaron Rodgers do it for years and years and years and years. He made, guys that have never made a career elsewhere look really good. Great fantasy players, right? Green Bay, the only real great wide receivers that Aaron Rodgers has ever had is Devontae Adams. Like that's it. And he makes everyone else look really good.
No.
Randall Cobb.
Oh, we just gonna forget Jordy Nelson. We're gonna toss him out.
But what has Jordy Nelson done since?
No. Hold on, wait. He made Aaron Rodgers look good. He got open and made him look good.
You think it worked the other way around?
Oh, 100%. What?
Ooh, I don't know.
How many times was he okay? So where does Aaron Rodgers rank in contested passes? I'll wait.
I don't know. Great question.
He's very low on that poll because most of the time those receivers are open. He had Greg Jennings, he had Donald Driver, he's had running backs, he's had an offensive line. Oh, we're not gonna do that. He ain't had an offensive line.
He did.
They gave him an offensive line every year. They made sure of that.
No question.
He's had every special tight end you could think of.
but like Robert Tonyan, like this guy didn't make the Lions roster, and rightfully
Bennett.
so. And suddenly he gets 11 touchdowns. That's not because he's actually like a top 10 tight end. It's because Aaron Rodgers.
No, he was playing fullback and he got more opportunities when somebody with more vision at head coach came into the mix. I'm just merely pointing out the fact that this idea that Aaron Rodgers made receivers better is ridiculous. Like people say the same thing about Calvin Johnson. He made Stafford better, but Stafford numbers went up and got better when Calvin left because he wasn't forced, right?
Sure.
Like, and another thing I looked at is because after talking to JT Sullivan, aka the QB school, shout out to him. When he told me that they went through this whole entire game prep, and he said it was stressed on how this was going to go, and they got to the game, and he had to get in the game. He said, "All right, what we calling?" And he was like, the coach was like, "Throw the ball to Calvin." Like what? This is not how this works.
That's
it's
not how you run it.
This is right. And so you look at these different things, and I'm like, I'm not making no excuses at all. For no Aaron Rodgers. He's had everything. It ain't just been Devontae Adams. He's had it all. He's had the running backs. He's had the defenses. He's had it all. You can't say he ain't never had a run game. You can't say he ain't never had a receiving core. They even had Charles Woodson, I feel like, at one point doing something for him. I feel like it's just everybody was doing something. It's a lot that he did. But we talking Lions. I'm gonna get back. I bring it back. I get so sick to my stomach when people make these excuses for him. But I do like your idea of saying that Jared Goff will get the love because clearly in this town, the quarterback gets the love and the blame. Even though I think from my count, there's been 20, including Jared Goff. There's been 20 quarterbacks to start for the Lions in a nice stretch, and the Lions fan base has found a way to blame every single one of them.
Yep.
They do.
Time-honored tradition.
It's just like if we don't do it, it's not normal. And then the other part of it that I look at is this. I know that the Lions fan base now really want a mobile quarterback, and I'm like, we did that with Andre Ware, and he won the Heisman, and so just food for thought. But for me, I gave it to Lynn, and the reason I gave it to Lynn in terms of getting that recognition is because he's the one that got to scheme these guys open. Everybody's talking about what they can and cannot have and what they don't have. He's got to scheme it open and create something that makes a person look good. I remember when the Bears traded for Nick Foles, I laughed because I said the Bears don't do what the Eagles did to make Nick Foles successful, which was a lot of those quick passes. And what happened? They panicked, and now we got Andy Dalton. Thank you, Chicago. We appreciate that. I think when you look at that guy who's scheming them open, that is the guy who should get the bulk of the energy of it. I think if you want to give some love to the quarterback, true. If you want to give some love to Randall L., that's cool too. But for the bulk of it, I think those are the guys that you look at. Now, let's talk to training camp a little quick, real quick. When it comes to training camp, what is that one cap battle that you think not only fans should pay attention to, but the media should be watching too at the Lions training camp?
For me, it's got to be the cornerback jobs because I do think Jeff Okudah's got one locked in, but outside of that, I'm not sure what they're going to do. I'm not sure if Amani Oruwariye is that guy. I don't know if Quinn Dunbar is that guy. I mean, maybe we're even talking about Ifeatu Melifonwu getting in there a little bit, but it's a position that obviously the Lions need to improve a bunch. And basically during minicamp and OTAs, they're splitting time between Dunbar and Oruwariye, and I don't really know who has the leg up. I know there are a lot of Oruwariye guys, ever since the minute he was drafted, but we have to be real. Like he wasn't particularly good last year. No one was, and maybe it's not his fault.
Who was?
Yeah. But even as I think people kind of have overrated Oruwariye, since they expected him to be a second round pick and he goes in the 5th round.
Uh-oh, what happened? No, don't tell me we lost him.
To pump the brakes a little bit on him and give Dunbar a real chance, because this is a guy who was, according to PFF, like a top 5 corner in 2019, just 2 years ago. This guy was at the top of the game. So I think he has a real chance to win the job, but he's going to have to earn it. And so I always love watching wide receiver versus cornerback drills in training camp. I think it's one of the more entertaining drills that they do. And then obviously it's kind of headlined by 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s. So we'll get a good opportunity to see who's going to win that job. And that's probably where my focus is going to be on early.
Listen, I tell you right now, first of all, me and Pro Football Focus don't get along. I can't stand them. I'm sorry, I can't. Okay. But I thought about this statement of 2 years ago, and I'm like, damn it, 2 years ago I was younger. Like I had more hair 2 years ago. Like 2 years ago, I didn't even have I was only one kid up. Now I'm 2 kids in. So 2 years changes a lot of things. Sure. I watched Dunbar and I thought, okay, he had some success, but I'm not gonna act like he was like that for real. But I do like your pick for the cornerback position, because I'm going to be in a similar area, but it's one that I think we should definitely pay attention to, and it's the safety position. Yeah. I am starting to fall more in love with Dean Marlowe. I really am. The more I watch his film of him with the Bills and how he was utilized, the more I'm starting to understand why he's here. And the more I'm starting to get concerned for Will Harris. Yeah. I mean, obviously you hope that he take the next step and figure this out, but Dean Marlowe looks like he might fit that thing. We talked about it earlier with Tracy Walker just being kind of out of it and stuff, because apparently you move the free safety to strong and put him in the box, he's supposed to get better, right? just genius, just stupid. But yeah, I think that's the matchup that I'm looking at the most, and that's the one I'm expecting to see a lot of big things out of. I'm gonna hit on one more question, and then we'll take the questions from the chat real quick, and then get out of here. This one is the one that I've been preaching, because people seem to think that I'm crazy for saying that the Lions is going to beat the 49ers on opening day. Now, Jeremy, do you think I'm nuts for saying that? Do you think I've lost my mind on the belief that the Lions will beat the 49ers? Because I can support my answer.
I don't think you've lost your mind. I think week one, it always tends to be very goofy. It's unpredictable. Like we all go into the season with all these preconceived notions based on mostly last year's results, which is not really how you should. I mean, it turns out if you base, strength of schedule based on last year's results, it turns out that's a horrible corollary. Like it doesn't turn out that way at all. And so we're all looking at the San Francisco 49ers, and we're really looking at the 2019 San Francisco 49ers because we're all giving them a pass last year because of all the injuries. And that's somewhat fair. I like Kyle Shanahan a lot. I think they're going to be a good team this year. But week one, everyone's still figuring everything out. Everyone's still, just trying to do whatever they do. Like, this is the first full off season in a couple of years. Everything's going to be new for a lot of these people, and especially in Detroit. So I'm not a betting man as is, but if I were into sports betting, I would lay off of week one every single year because we don't know anything about either of these teams. So, just based on that, yeah, take the Lions in week one. I'm not feeling strongly either way because I think things are just going to be crazy.
I'm feeling real strong. I'm talking about. They have labeled me, Jeremy, the hopium dealer of Detroit Lions. So I'm giving out all kind of hopium. This is something that I believe should be passed out every time there's a new season. But in this particular case, I have become the snowfall king of it all when it comes to hopium. So stay with me.
Yeah.
You're talking about a West Coast team traveling to the East Coast and having to play at 1:00. That sucks. You're talking about a team that doesn't have any film on the Detroit Lions and it can only use the information that they have based on preseason, and the Lions ain't showing nothing in preseason. That sucks. Talking about a team that lost their defensive coordinator, pass game coordinator, because they both went to New York Jets. Sure. That sucks. And then you take all that and bottle it up with the pressure of your fan base and your ownership and everybody else knowing that this coach is on the hot seat and going to be trying to figure out when are you going to put in Trey Lance. Oh, yes. Bottle it up. When you get to come into a game where a team has nothing on you, they're going to come at a disadvantage to the one thing that brings me to this question of how much of an impact will the Lions fans have. Nobody. I would challenge anyone on this. Nobody gets drunk like Michiganders. Nobody can do it. And you talking about opening the stadium to full capacity for the first time in how long? Oh, my God. You are going to see drunk people. You may get a few fans to hit the field and run across it. And I suspect that the noise in that stadium will set a record because the one thing I know is the moment a turnover happens, just the smallest turnover, 3 and out, watch how they erupt. And now this team who's already sleep deprived, coming in with no film on them, and have to look at the Detroit Lions and go, what the hell is going on? And what did they give these people? Hopium. That's what we gave them. So my question to you is, how much of an impact would the Lions fans have on the home games this year?
I mean, it's going to be noticeable for sure. I mean, yeah. And it's not only the fact that they've been gone for a year, but it's the fact that this is the most optimistic I've seen this fan base in a long time. Like, really going back to, I almost want to go back to the 2014 team that was really good with Sue and, the Dallas game and all that sort of stuff, not to bring that up. But I mean, we ran an approval poll of Dan Campbell the other day, 98% right now. 98%.
Listen, it says 78 in the article, and I'm like, they clearly didn't look at the results that quick.
Well, no, it was 78 when he got hired.
Oh, right when he got hired. Okay.
Yeah, right now, 98%. And when is the last time 98% of Lions fans agreed on anything?
I know it, and you know what I tried to figure out. I ain't gonna lie, Jimmy. I was like, are they kind of like changing the numbers? And I was trying to look at how many people voted. The number of people who put their vote in was even more impressive. Yeah. Because it was like a mass of people that was like, look, I really believe in what he's talking about and what he's doing, and I think we're in the right direction. That is huge, but it's at 98% right now.
Let me. It's technically 97% right now.
Because when I cast my vote, you was at 88%. I believe the poll was at. So if it's jumped significantly since I voted,
2,317 positive votes, 60 negative votes.
Well, you can't make everybody happy, and apparently, some people don't know how to do it. The PTSD is strong in this fan base, and I understand it. For sure. I just think the impact of this is going to be felt 100%, and it gets me excited because I think that to me, once they win at opening day and then they beat the Packers week 2, because I think they will beat them week 2. I feel like football. I feel like A-Rod is just going to. I've seen him get patty before. I mean, he's thrown the ball away just to prove a point to Mike McCartney. Like, yo, I'm gonna lead the league in throwaways. We're gonna do it like that. Like he. I've seen him get patty. I suspect that he'll get patty in this game. And they barely beat us even when they had Aaron Rodgers. So just saying. At this point, people, we'll take some of y'all questions. I don't want to keep Jeremy too long because I'm pretty sure he got to write something, and I hope I trigger something in his head for a good article. Because I like reading your stuff, even when I don't agree with it. I like reading it because I'd be like, "But is he right?" And now I got to go and research to figure out like, is he right? And then now I will say this: when I see a part of the article that say like Pro Football Focus, I'm like, well, you know what? I'm just going to toss that little bit of information out. We're going to go to this part and see where we can figure this out. I just can't stand them, man. I don't understand how they come up with this stuff, the rankings, and don't make sense to me. It just don't make sense. It says Jeremy Cameron is AK. I know it looks like he's like not even. It's like he's in my room moving.
You like that?
Yeah, I know, right? I'm going to find out how you pulling that off, because when I do leave this job, and I plan on doing it, I'm going to bring myself on camera. But until then, this is how I feed my family, and so I won't be on camera because they can't identify who that person is right there. That's the superhero. He does not exist. So, but any questions you have, please pop it in the chat, and I will put them on the screen. We'll talk about it. Now, Jeremy, I don't know if you saw the Woodward Sports conversation with Drake Bell gave him 3 and 14.
I didn't, but I think I did see the headline somewhere.
Why? Why? Like I asked a question. I really did. I reached out to somebody who's kind of in the room with them, and I said, ask this, and I put it in the chat too. And I said, if Drake Bell was still on this team, would he believe that he's looking at a team that's going 3 and 13? I still have yet to get an answer, because to me, I don't see how you can have that when he single-handedly had a whole video showing 10 people on the field and wow, this was out of whack. And he even said that the biggest problem was Patricia, but yet we move on from Patricia to a guy that he even said, man, he makes me want to come back and play. Yet somehow we're 3 and 14. Now, to be fair, he did say way too early, but still, that was way too damn early to come out with that prediction. Let me get to this question really quick, because I want to make sure I don't miss it for him. And I told him I promised him that I was going to read it. This question comes from Patrick Cinco. Do you think it will take a few years for Goff to get a hold of the system, or will he get the hang of it right away? What do you think, Jeremy?
Well, you hope that, he's at this point a veteran. So, he's probably heard a couple terms. He came in not with Sean McVay. I think a lot of people think that he came in and Sean McVay was right there waiting for him. But no, he came in by Jeff Fisher. Jeff Fisher was the coach. So he's played under at least 2 different, schemes, and he's been around. You study other defenses or other offenses too when you're in the NFL. So I would expect, really by the end of this year at most, for him to really know the system and love the system. And Anthony Lynn, we heard Jared Goff already say that Anthony Lynn has asked him, what do you like? What sort of impact do you want to have on this offense? And so there's going to be stuff in there that he already knows. There's going to be that collaboration to make the offense as comfortable to him as possible. So I would not expect it to take a couple of years for Jared Goff to really understand the system. And if it does, that's a big red flag, because he's been in the league long enough to not have to do that.
Yeah, facts. I think if it takes him a long time to figure it out, that's ridiculous. I suspect that he picked it up quick, because I think that they're going to keep it simple. They did the same thing for Justin Herbert, and they're going to treat him the same way, even though he's a veteran. And it's a smart thing to do. That's what good coaches do. You don't set them up. I have seen so many statements from people that say they missed the mustache, bro. I've seen one person that was like, bring it back. You got to grow it back.
November, it's coming back.
Listen, I don't know if y'all noticed. Y'all got to be on his Twitter, because the internet has a way of being. I've seen them literally do the Rob Burgundy. They literally put all these pictures of Sean with his mustache, and I was rolling. I was like, I think you had Ned Flanders at one point from The Simpsons.
Yep.
And I was like, and then I remember you saying like, okay, internet, you win. Okay, you win. Just okay, you got it. And it's funny, but JGB want to know, do the Lions players have the hardest name to pronounce in the NFL? I sure as hell feel like it. I suck at it.
Yeah, they've got to have the largest Nigerian representation in the league. I think they have 5 or 6 or 7 guys. But you just got to get used to it. You just got to. You could throw a name at me right now, and I think I can pronounce it just because.
Okay,
you study them.
Let's go with. Okay, we're gonna go with iffy. You see, I went to the easiest pronunciation I can. Okay, let's go. You ready?
Yeah.
Shoot.
Ifatu Melifonwu.
The devil's a liar. What?
Yeah. Ifatu. It might actually be Ifatu, but yeah.
All right, let's go. Let's go with the next one. Let's see. Right? Okay, let's go with Levy.
It's Levi.
I'm sorry, Levi.
That's okay. Levi Onzurike.
Onzurike.
Yeah. It doesn't look. The last name does not look anything like how it sounds.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
My favorite one is Halapuli Vati Vaitai. That's my favorite.
I was just gonna say let's go with Big V, but apparently you have been practicing.
Yeah.
I know he's gonna forever be Big V.
Have you ever heard how I learned how to say his name?
No.
You sing his name to play that funky music, White Boy, and you will never mispronounce it again. Ready?
Yep.
Halapuli Vati Vaitai. It works. You'll never mispronounce it again.
Now I'm not gonna be able to hear that son the same again. 100%. Damn it, you are a genius. Yes, that is a very good way to get it. It's I like that. The day Luke shows his face would be the most viewed video. Hey, until I can pay, I gotta find another way to pay them bills. I'll take a few more questions. I know Jeremy got to get out of here. I don't want to keep him too long. Damn it, Jeremy, why did you do that? I like this song. Now I can't get that out of my head.
I'm sorry. If I know it, everyone has to know it.
Oh, damn it. All right. Luke, the day we win a Super Bowl is the day you got to do a face reveal. 100%.
100%, right?
I'll do a face reveal. I'll probably do a break dance. You might see a whole you got everybody dying singing this damn song. It is hilarious. Like you cannot. It's so brilliant that you came up with like.
But to be fair, I didn't come up with that. An Eagles writer tipped me off to that because that's where he was before. I don't know where he got it from, but yeah. You
think he'd be better as a guard?
I do. I think he's always been a run mauler. Like that was the scouting report on him when the Lions got him is like that dude can maul on the run, but I'm not sure about his pass protection. So you slide him inside, pass protection isn't as important. I think he'll be better there.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, Goff didn't know the sunset in the West. Now again, how long will it take for him to grasp the offense? I think that was a joke. Okay. At least I'm hoping it was.
I remember seeing that on Hard Knocks and just thinking he was a goober. And I don't know him well enough to say that he's not a goober, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think he's been funny.
Yeah. A little bit.
I think that's what it was. Let's get to those final thoughts. Please make sure you plug it. I want people to, in case they forget, where they can find you at for the podcast, where they can find you at for YouTube. Even though I don't know how they don't know this, it's linked in the description. Hopefully I can come over there and join y'all because I really want. I got to talk to Ryan. One day Ryan said something one day, and I was like, he's serious. Okay. And I didn't want to comment because I didn't know how to make it not sound angry, but I was really trying to question what I had heard him say. So
I have that same thought go off in my head during the podcast all we I'm where I'm just like, I want to go off on you, but it's probably not a good look. But
it's probably not.
Pride of Detroit, everything. So, we're Pride of Detroit on YouTube. Twitch is our big platform where we live stream. We're actually going to have a live stream here in about 30 minutes here with Jamal Williams. He's going to join us. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Awesome. PrideDetroit.com. My Twitter is Detroit on the Lion. Or you can just follow Pride of Detroit on Twitter, Facebook, all that sort of stuff. Just search Pride of Detroit. We're everywhere.
Yeah, 100%. And y'all know me, people. I never end the show without a positive message because I believe that, we need that. It is necessary for us to have a positive message. So today's positive message comes from the internet because I sometimes can't find a source, but this one was fire for me. This one is going to be a little deep, so think about it. You have to make sure that the nutrition that you are putting into your body lines up with your goals. Now, I want y'all to take a second to think about that because when I first thought about this, I literally had to stop and go back because I was thinking food, right? But I understood this thing called nutrition, and nutrition comes in a number of ways. It comes from the people who are in your circle. It comes from the place that you work. The nutrition that you get is the different levels that you find yourself in that surrounds you with nothing but positive energy. And when you put yourself in situations where you're stressed or you got a job that you don't like, but yet you keep showing up and you're trying to figure out that the moment you pull up in the driveway, while you're having a irregular physical reaction, you're trying to tell yourself something is wrong. Well, yes, your body's nutrition has been depleted. You have given all the best parts of yourself to something that does not deserve the best parts of you, and it is time to move on. I am challenging you today, people, to take a second to give your body the food that it needs. Give yourself people who actually genuinely care and know that what you do matters. Give yourself an opportunity at a job or a career that makes you happy. Give yourself permission to be happy, because when you do, that is when you find the perfect formula for the best diet and nutrition you can have. It's called having great people around you. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure you go out, subscribe to Pride of Detroit and Jeremy, as they over there talking all type of crazy stuff. And as you heard already, they're going to be bringing in new Detroit Lions running back, Mr. Jamal Williams. And as always, I say it once and I say it again, don't be no chump. Please do your research. We are out.